Fried Chicken, Colonel Sanders is an American hero. He's also a Chinese hero. The BBC on February 12, 2016 explains, with increased investment from the United States in China, more and more people are recognizing popular figures, such as Colonel Sanders. However, with this increase in investment, you'd think the Chinese economy is doing great. But unfortunately, this isn't the case. The article continues, explaining that just a month ago, the Chinese economy decreased about 7%, one of the largest decrease for their economy in some time. And as Al Jazeera on January 20th of 2016 explains, they're facing a stock market that is at a 14-month low. In response to this, Chinese leaders decided that they would devalue their currency. The idea of devaluation is that it increases the amount of a currency, thus making it worth less. This is supposed to increase purchases, as it's cheaper to purchase Chinese goods, but it also has a dark side. Given that according to the previously cited Al Jazeera article, the Chinese economy is the largest and most important in the region, it's crucial that we ask today's question. As foreign reserves fall to a 3-year low, should China devalue their yuan? And the answer is absolutely not, as it would do more harm than good. We can understand this for 3 reasons. First, because it would harm the region and in turn China. Second, because increasing the cost of imports will harm consumers. And finally, because China needs reform, not devaluation. While the United States was making a pivot to China, China was making a pivot to literally every Southeast Asian nation. They've been investing heavily in these nations, but devaluation could harm this. The first reason why Chinese devaluation will do more harm than good is because the impacts on the region will also have a negative impact on China. Oftentimes when devaluation occurs, it can harm neighboring nations. The New York Times on January 12, 2016 explains, if China devalues their currency immensely, their products will be much cheaper. And as a result, nations will turn to China to purchase these goods, rather than other nations. The BBC on January 12, 2016 confirms this, explaining that if China devalues, more people will turn to China for technology. And as a result, nations such as South Korea and Indonesia will suffer. The article continues, explaining that as these countries start to suffer, they may also devalue their currencies. This will start what is called a devaluation war, in which currencies continue to devalue across the region. And unfortunately, as a Chatham House 2016 report explains, this has disaster effects for the entire region. Not only would all of the currencies be lower, but it would also be more and more difficult for these countries to overcome it. And as a result, devaluation does more harm than good. China's customers are buying a lot, so much so that their purchases from other nations increase every year. However, devaluation could have a negative effect on this. The second reason why devaluation does more harm than good is because increasing the cost of imports will harm Chinese consumers. Whenever a country chooses to devalue their currency, it makes it more difficult to buy foreign goods. Essentially, as the currency costs less and less, they need more of it to buy goods from other nations. But unfortunately, China is a huge spender for other nations. The Brookings Institution on January 1st, 2016 explains, currently, Chinese spending is increasing every year as they continue to purchase more from other countries. Furthermore, as the BBC on February 1st of 2016 contends, this consumption will decrease, and it already has. Because China has already considered devaluation, people are now purchasing less and less goods because it's more costly for them to do so, with they already seen consumption down about 3%. If this consumption continues to decline, the Chinese economy could suffer. Further, as a 2016 Chatham House report contends, China depends immensely on imports, getting a majority of their fossil fuels from other nations. If these fossil fuels are more costly to purchase, the Chinese middle class as well as low-income individuals will suffer, and this will have incredibly negative effects on the economy. As a result, devaluation absolutely will do more harm than good and have a negative impact for the people of China. The Chinese economy is kind of like a Rubik's Cube. It's really confusing, you don't know where to begin, and for investors, it's really difficult to get started. The final reason why the Chinese economy should not devalue their currency is because they need reform, not devaluation. For businesses that want to invest in China, it's really difficult to do so. There are a lot of barriers to investment. The Harvard Business Review on January 12, 2016 explains, these barriers have made it difficult for the United States as well as many European nations. It's difficult for them to push their money into China and invest in Chinese companies. Exactly what China needs. As The Economist on January 9, 2016 contends, currently, China is investing $100 billion in investing in locomotives. However, they've claimed they need a lot of support from the rest of the world, and they need the help of investors. This reform is essential, and simply devaluing their currency isn't going to address the long-term issues they face. The Chinese economy is an emerging market, and it's going to have a lot of success if it makes the proper reforms. But by simply devaluing their currency every time they face economic struggles, the previously cited Economist article explains, they will continue to be stuck in a process where they don't reform their economy, they don't make it easy to invest, and as a result, they'll never actually succeed, just continue to devalue their currency. As a result, this devaluation absolutely does more harm than good, and it avoids making the necessary reforms. Today, we asked ourselves the question, as foreign reserves fall to a 3-year low, should China devalue the yen? And the answer is absolutely not, because it will do more harm than good. First, because it will impact the region as well as China. Second, because it will make it more costly. And finally, they need reform. Exactly what Colonel Sanders proves.
You'll also be receiving the time signal for the cross-examination.
Got it.
Similar.
Perfect.
Hi, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Can I just start whenever?
Yep.
Okay, I was curious if you could address, in your second point you talked about imports in China. In the month of January, they had a report that said that their manufacturing decreased heavily in China. How do you think that reconciles when their manufacturing decreased the Chinese government's faith in their currency?
Can you repeat it a little more clear?
Sorry.
You're
so
good.
In the month of January, China had a report that manufacturing decreased greatly,
Right.
and that didn't go very well for them. How do you think that reconciles the potential impact of maybe devaluing their currency on their imports?
Yeah, in that regard, devaluation does have its advantages. It'll make their manufacturing industry do better, but unfortunately, it's also going to have huge impacts on consumers in China because it's already a lot more costly for them to purchase goods. China has a huge growing middle class, and it's really important that they can purchase goods that they need.
And then last question is, with the discrepancy between such a capitalist-driven economy and their communist government, how do you think, what's the likelihood that the Chinese government has a lot of control over their economy, that because of the manufacturing report, they will or will not depreciate the value of their currency? Yeah,
they've already started it a little bit, and this has already had bad effects, as I talked about in my first point. As for the contrast between capitalism and communism in China, China has already been looking a lot to the capitalist West, so they're clearly interested in getting involved here.
That's all I have.
Thanks.
Go team.